call to order the meeting of the Lake Mills Plan Commission of September 23, 2014. We'll proceed with roll call.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Holman?
Here.
Ms. Lazarus?
Here.
Mr. Lynch? Mr. Magnuson?
Here.
Mr. Schwark? Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Schwark visited the other day to let me know that he is traveling on business to Minnesota this evening, and so he will not be able to join us. The next item number 3, correction and/or approval of the minutes, August 26, 2014.
Move to accept.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Any comments? Okay. Hearing not any, then today we'll just, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. The minutes have passed. Item number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold your comments until the hearing. We do have 2 public hearings this evening. Item number 5, Title 10 zoning ordinance, which includes the zoning map. And item number 7, Title 11 subdivision regulations ordinance. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting your comments. Also fill out the sign-in sheet at the podium. Are there any public comments at this time? Okay. All right. In that case, we'll close the questions and public comment and go on to item number 5, public hearing, Title 10 zoning ordinance. Now, this public hearing will also include consideration of the zoning map. It is called out in Chapter 3 of Title 10, and there's a reference made to the zoning map, and it's incorporated within the zoning ordinance by that reference. So this Title 10 does include the zoning map, and Mr. Wolf has the fresh maps with him this evening, and so we can refer to that as well. Now, while we're getting the maps, we do have a motion in front of us, and also going along with that motion, I just have a paper on that, but really what my little write-up here is all in this motion. So the motion in front of us is to recommend the rewrite of Title 10 to the City Council. It covers the undergoing of this rewrite so that we can be consistent with the Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan. Okay. And then, and it does cover that we are having the public hearing this evening. And the motion that we have in here is for the following findings: that the proposed update would not unduly disrupt existing uses of properties in the city, yet would still encourage uses consistent with comprehensive plan, long-range goals, policies, and objectives. Zoning classifications are designed to either be consistent with existing zoning classifications, to improve uses of property with new or revised zoning classifications, or to implement the land use plan element of the city's comprehensive plan for long-range growth goals of the city. Properties are suited to the proposed updated zoning scheme. The proposed zoning code update would not be in disharmony with the trends of development. The proposed zoning code update would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed update would be in the public interest. So that is what we have in front of us. And so we have the zoning ordinance draft itself, and we also have the map. And right now we are going to open the public hearing. So the public hearing is open So if you have a comment you would like to make on the proposed zoning ordinance update or the zoning map, then then go ahead.
Hi, I'm Patricia Cicero. I live at 505 Mulberry Street, and I wasn't planning on getting up today, but since there's not a big crowd, I thought maybe I would. I want to thank you for having an extended process to working on this code. I know this wasn't expected, but I'm glad that you made that decision, and I thought it was a really great process that included the public and gave people opportunity to come and work with you to try to get the best language for the city. I gave a lot of comments on a number of issues relating to the shoreline zone and erosion control issues, and I'm happy with the changes that were made, and I think they're going to do a lot to protect the lake that goes into making Lake Mills the community that it is and protecting property values. So I just wanted to thank you for that process and look forward to it going further. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Cicero. Anyone else that wishes to speak to the proposed zoning ordinance or the zoning map? Okay. All right. That will show that that is the public comment on for the public hearing on the Title 10 zoning ordinance. And we go now to item number 6, discussion recommendation, Title 10 zoning ordinance. Plan Commissioners, you do have the motion in front of you, and you do have the fresh zoning map and the zoning ordinance that are reflecting the most recent changes we made in August. Yes, if you would like to make a motion.
I would move for passage of Plan Commission Motion 14-9-1, a recommendation to the City Council on Title 10 rewrite.
Are you going to include the map in that motion?
Oh. Didn't you, isn't it referenced to?
It is referenced, but yeah, we could make that, we could maybe make that clear in the motion.
Including
That'd be fine.
Updated zoning map?
Okay. It's been moved to pass the motion in front of us, which would include the zoning map.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
I take it everybody's happy with what they've seen?
Generally.
Well,
Always room for improvement.
yeah.
Those can be made at any time.
Yeah, and we know that once this goes forward, that unbeknownst to us, there will be a circumstance that comes up in the future that we don't know about today, and we'll call for examining something in the code, and amendments are in our future. But right now, this is what we know. Okay. Any further discussion?
Cool.
Well, if you don't have any, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on motion 1491.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Ms. Lazares?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item number 7, public hearing, Title 11, Subdivision Regulations Ordinance. And again, there is a motion 1492, that is in front of us. And this one is also discussing that we are looking that this is rewriting outdated provisions that so that we can have consistency with the comprehensive plan. Calls out the public hearing this evening. And the findings set forth here are that the commission finds that the proposed subdivision ordinance will, 1, promote public health, safety, and general welfare of the community, 2, lessen congestion in the streets and highways, 3, further the orderly layout and use of land, secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, provide adequate light and air, including access to sunlight for solar collectors and to wind for wind energy systems, 4, prevent overcrowding of land, avoid undue concentration of population, 5, facilitate adequate provision of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, playgrounds, and other public requirements, and 6, facilitate further re-subdivision of larger tracts into smaller parcels of land. The Commission further finds that the proposed subdivision ordinance update will, 1, support community character, conserve value of buildings placed upon land, 2, provide the best possible environment for human habitation, and 3, encourage the most appropriate use of land throughout the city. And we do have the fresh update on the zoning ordinance here. So, is there anyone, it is public hearing, is there anyone who wishes to speak to the subdivision, the proposed subdivision ordinance? All right, let the record show that no one stepped forward for the public hearing on the subdivision ordinance. We therefore close the public hearing and move to item number 8, discussion recommendation, Title 11, Subdivision Regulations Ordinance. Again, we have the motion 1492, which memorializes a plan commission action if you are agreeing with the findings set forth.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for adoption of a motion 14-9-2, a recommendation to City Council on the Title 11 rewrite, subdivision regulations.
Okay. All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt motion 1492, recommendation to City Council on Title 11 rewrite. Is there any discussion?
I have a question on 236.45 local subdivision regulation. Just a clarification, I guess. In the middle of the paragraph, it says we want to avoid undue concentration of population. And then 2 sentences down, we want to take larger tracts of land and put them up into smaller parcels. Seems like we have a little contradiction here, and I'd like some understanding of that.
Okay.
Well,
Well-
that's from the state statutes.
Yeah,
Specifically.
it is.
So the idea there is to try to have the orderly development of land, and Title 11 is intended to kind of spell out the rules by which you can subdivide land into smaller pieces of land, presuming it's in keeping with the comprehensive plan and the zoning code. And so that's where you get to the undue concentration, whereas you as a commission and the council will determine what is or isn't appropriate intensity or densities of land development.
Okay. I was just wondering, because the first word before that is re-subdivision, like if they've got a subdivision and we want
Oh.
to redo it and chop it up into smaller pieces, which I would find,
Yeah, that is not the
Bad.
case. No, it's,
Right.
some piece of land may have been subdivided from a large farm parcel to a smaller parcel, and then in time, it may further subdivide or
all
re-subdivide.
right, so we're not talking about a laid out plot, and now we're going to make more density.
Not the intention, no.
No.
Okay,
It would still have
thank
to
you.
comply with zoning and future land use map.
Thank you.
I just have one question too, just while we're kind of on that vein. In the master plan, where in undeveloped areas, if a potential potential use comes into play, what's the kind of the vehicle there for the council to look at possibly an area where there's, let's just say in the north area where there's mixed use, and I don't even know what to ask hypothetically, but just some sort of change.
Okay.
How does that process work out for them to maybe rethink it based on like current
Sure.
findings?
It would start actually with you as an entity. If someone came in and said, oh, that area up there is slated for commercial, and a property owner came in and said, or developer said, oh, I would rather have more residential up there, they would come to you and to the Plan Commission and ask or request or petition you to change the land use and the zoning for that area. And you would evaluate based upon maybe current market conditions, maybe that times have changed, maybe the development that was coming in really is a game changer for a community. It could be a large employer, or it could be a large, maybe, I'm just going to say senior housing or something that you hadn't anticipated up there that really does seem appropriate. And you would determine its appropriateness after the requisite hearings, input from the public. And then you would make a recommendation to the council to change or not change either zoning or land use for an area. So you do have the ability on, I'll say, a case-by-case basis to evaluate those types of things. So this isn't etched in stone, but Title 11 itself is intended to just spell out the rules. If you are going to subdivide land, here's what you need to do it. Here's the process. Yep. Here's what the instrument, meaning the plats, need to contain. Here's the timing by which those things, submittals need to occur and decisions need to be made. So
See, all along, in this, I don't know, 5-year process here of getting to the day we're at, I always had a strange fear. We were basing a lot of our decisions on master plan primarily, to kind of dial in our zoning code. And my fear all along was if something else potentially would change, what the process
Yeah.
was. So this is a very clear explanation, I think, to everyone on how
be
that would
locked
work.
in.
Yeah, because a lot of our history or historical events have kind of almost portrayed the vision of what it was has to be hands on your hips and held to that based on a different group's visionary planning.
Yeah.
And it always kind of, until this very moment, I always kind of questioned exactly how that process was. And now we're to the point where, we're actually have the ability to enact the zoning, after this is passed. But yet, what could possibly be the potential change in the master plan? So this is the clearest I've heard that explanation so far.
Well, the master plan, I'm sorry, Steve, did you?
Yeah, let's make sure, though, that it's clear that this is Title 11, and I think you're talking about Title 10.
Yeah, I'm just, the maps here, and it's,
Sure.
it was.
But in all cases, the ordinances are meant to be changed. The reason we undertook this update was because of the comprehensive plan. One of the key recommendations was to implement many of the things that you want to see as a community, was to update those documents, which were over 40 years old. That's a long time for documents. A lot has changed in 40 years.
Yep.
Development practices have changed significantly in 40 years. Yes, you'll be tweaking both documents, Title 11, going forward. That happens. But we've removed a lot of the conflicting language between the two, and we've spelled out in both documents how to make change to them, how a property owner or developer can request something, to petition the city to do something, and then the threshold by which you will make decisions. I think we made that much clearer in Title 10 and Title 11.
I'm just glad that this will be helpful to staff to help the clear, concise answer to the question, and also to kind of change the, unfortunately, we've all heard it, whether it's true or not, kind of the stigma that we're anti something. If it's clear in the code and people can get an answer, it should change a lot of stuff, I think. So I'm pleased.
If a developer came forward and wanted to develop a subdivision, and the zoning is in place, Title 11 will make it very clear on what they need to do to get a plat approved. And that's important for a developer. It's also important for the city, decision makers, you as an appointed body, the council is an elected body, but also the staff. There will be less gray area in the current code, meaning it's clear as to what the litmus is for approving something. And that will help everyone all along.
And also enforcement, right? Because then there'll be a clear,
Well, enforcement is based, in Lake Mills, is based generally on a couple different issues. First of all is like complaint. So if we got a complaint about something, then we would go out and enforce it. There are a lot of things that were going on in the zoning code that'll still be the same. I mean, you looked at it was always illegal to park your RV in the front yard. It always was. Now, lots of people did it because nobody complained and there was no enforcement. If someone complained, then we'd enforce. It was like the vision triangle. A lot of people planted things in their vision triangle where you couldn't see. We got one complaint. The one person who got complained about then drove the entire city, found every vision triangle that was a problem, and complained about all of them. So we had to enforce against everybody on the list. That's been kind of the process. It's not the greatest process in the world, but it's relatively effective with the size of our staff. That leaves some enforcement problems out there. There are decisions made about interpretations of this, and then will continue to go on. There were decisions made by Guy Burlingame 30 years ago that we had to base our future decisions on, based on that this was now the consistency of the code. And so that brought about some of the reasons why we wanted to see some changes. Statutorily, you can always come in and ask the Planning Commission and City Council to change your zoning or your, conditions of the subdivision. Always have been. And when the staff recommends that, I've been in where I've recommended that somebody didn't want to follow the zoning code. I recommended you go to the Planning Commission and request the change, and they didn't want to. On the other hand, we've recommended that people come to the Planning Commission and the council to do it, and it creates a political battle. You find the battle lines between the groups that are interested in that issue. So now you can be at council, you can have two on one side, two on the other, and one in the middle. Now we're searching for consensus. And the person who is there could be dragged out 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 months while the council's working through this process. That's part of politics. That's part of being involved in a community. And while people may not like it, that's the way the government is organized. And I try not to, there's no blame. It's just the way it's set up. And it's been that way for over 200 years in this country. It's consistent with the way it's been done for a long time. It's just that over 200 years, you gain a lot more rules.
anyway, thank you.
Well, so far we've had on motion 1492 a motion and a second. We are in discussion, and I'm thinking today that we should be memorializing our findings, and so then after looking at our existing Title 11, then that didn't really speak to findings for amendment to the existing subdivision regulations, and so then I looked to state statutes in Chapter 236, looking at the intent, and then the intent spoke to one thing that I didn't recall that we had touched on, and that was wind for wind energy, access to wind for wind energy systems. So, my thinking on that was it just passed around the sheet that has that shows the portion of the code at the bottom, and thinking, well, that can be included in the list of things that should be considered for utility easements, where it's listing storm and sanitary sewers. I should back up a bit. Electric power and communication facilities, storm and sanitary sewers, street trees, gas, water, street lights, and other utility lines, and solar access. I'm looking at this and thinking, well, we could just say utility line and solar access and access to wind energy systems. The wind energy systems are covered in the zoning ordinance. Actually, Dustin, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that, and if that seems like an appropriate way to say, well, yes, we also mean that that is something that would be a consideration in the design of a subdivision, is that they could certainly look at that kind of an easement along with others.
They certainly can. This section was really intended to outline the types of, I guess, common easements that we come across, and to ensure that you aren't harming somebody else's ability to use property or are enabling them to do certain things, third parties to do certain things on private property. So it certainly is something we can add. There's no harm in it.
So
Do you want a motion to amend?
for the motion, if you agree,
I would move to amend then the conventional, Chapter 5, Conventional Development, Section 11-5-1, Design Standards, as per your recommendations.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move motion 1492 with that modification as shown for section 1151H1. Any further discussion? Okay. Not hearing any, then I'll call for the roll call vote on motion 1492.
Did you want to do a roll call vote on the amendment first, and then the...
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Yes.
Right, so this is on the amendment.
Yeah, we'll proceed with roll call vote on the amendment, yes.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay. All right, very good, thank you. All right, in that case, then we'll proceed with the amended motion for 1492, and then we'll call vote on that then.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Holman?
Aye.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay. All right, the next item is item 9, but that doesn't pertain. I think we had that so often that we inherited it on our agenda for this evening about remaining issues and items. So in that case, we'll go on to item number 10 for public engagement, and you have my report that I did update the council on September 16 on those housekeeping amendments that we had finished up in August, and that you have from the copies of the news releases, the news brief, and the announcement that went to the different groups. So I've got that, and then Mr. Lynch and Mr. Schwark, we can hear from them at a different time, but we know that they had brought up their, that Mr. Schwark had talked about his discussions with engaging youth this fall. So with that, item number 11, recommendations for future agendas. Commission and staff, anything that we know about for October? Okay.
Can't think of anything.
Okay. All right, very good. Anything that the commissioners, do you have anything to talk about for future agendas? Okay. All right. Not hearing anything, I'll go to item number 12, adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on it?
Oh, it is the 5th week.
Hearing none, all those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 All those against, same sign. We are adjourned.